been a week. And I can't remember what I said in my last video. I'm in the house, obviously. I'm in the part of the house with the worst lighting. My face is pinker than it should be because I'm next to the pink curtains. I bought a lot of sweets at the grocery store with a great kosher section. I don't know if I'm going to one of my besties' houses. She doesn't have multiple houses. She's just one of my favorite people. For 4th of July or not. It depends on COVID-y things. You know, like, will there be multiple people? Will those people test? Blah, blah, blah. And so I may have overstocked. If not, she can come over before the party, like a day or two before the party, and we can just stuff ourselves full of, like, Italian rainbow cookies and all sorts of delicious desserts. Including something I've never had before, which is like a vanilla something or the other. And it looks really good. So, yeah, I can't remember if I said, like, what's going on with my health. I think I did. But just in case I didn't, I have to get Botox. And I found out, which I don't think I knew when I made the last video, which I haven't even posted yet, because that's how my week's gone, that it wouldn't be till September. So they said that it could take like 3 sessions, which are like weeks and weeks apart. So it'd be like, or like months apart. I think it could be like a year before I know whether or not this shit's gonna work. And like, he knows that my symptoms are so bad that if I like tried to take a job, it would just be counting down to how long before they decide that I look too wobbly on my feet, or I have to take too many days off for migraines, or I sound too weird because I have days where like I get brain fog and I like mix up my words and type funny, you know, I mix up my words there too. And it's like, well, what do you want me to do for a year? Well, I guess write more. Like, I got a migraine the other day, like a really bad one. Like when a storm comes in, kind of like pressure migraine thing that the Botox is supposed to be fixing. And like it started to come in and I got like that sleepiness thing. And I walked into my room and went to sleep, which like I have sleep problems. Like I have serious, horrible insomnia. And it's not like anxiety based or anything like that. It's just really bad insomnia. I don't fall asleep unless I have like my audiobook and melatonin and all this other stuff. But this triggered just like, I walked in there, I turned off my light, I closed my eyes, and I fell asleep for 15 hours. I just don't understand how a human being is supposed to, and it's not like I don't want to work. I want to work. I love work. Like, give me a job. My last job where I had like a not regular paycheck, but like a paycheck, like a nice sizable paycheck, when you break it down by hours, I was working on a job that had a time period, and the things that I needed to do, I had like a meeting at the end of the week, and then I had the entire week to put in the amount of time to get in the stuff that I needed to do. So if I needed to wake up at like, so if I woke up at like 4 a.m, or like I felt well enough at 4 a.m. to get a couple hours of work done, all I had to do was finish what needed to be done and then turn it in by that time. And so if it was, you know, it really wasn't more than like 10 hours of work, but I was getting paid enough that I could pay my bills because I don't have a lot of bills. I don't buy a lot of shit. I buy food. And I don't even buy a lot of food, honestly. I just eat vegan, like meat substitutes. So, yeah, like I have my mortgage and then everything else is reasonable. Like I don't even have like a smartphone. I have a tablet because it's the only thing that doesn't make me dizzy. And that was paid for by the grant because it's an accommodation, essentially. My computer, which exists only to do the things that my tablet cannot, I can only be on my good days. And even then, if I am not using it consistently, I will get sick from using it because it has been so long and my brain's like, yo, you know, this thing is like always constantly flickering. You just don't register it, but I do. And I'm like, yeah, I know. If it sucks, it really sucks. This is my life. This is my life. It's fine, but like I think it's a totally okay life. I don't mind watching television shows with my eyes closed. Like, I don't mind listening to the audio description. I'm getting really used to it. I don't feel like I'm not part of the world anymore the way that I did a couple years ago when this all got as bad as it did. Like, I was already cutting things out of my life, roller coasters, and I used to really love watching my ex play like the Batman games. I thought they were super cool. But at a certain point, it was getting harder and harder, and like I would be like, just tell me when you're about to go from like place to place, and I'll just close my eyes until you're done. And then I got worse from a vertigo incident, and it just like never ever resolved. Like I never am not dizzy. I'm never not I close my eyes and everything is like it's going like this. And some days it's just going a little bit, and some days it's going really close to flipping, and some days it just flips. And sometimes it'll just flip once, and some days it'll flip a lot, and sometimes I have to make sure, well, always I have to make sure I am staying as steady as possible, turning my head as slowly as possible, getting up as slowly as possible, crouching down as slowly as possible, and leaning forward as little as possible, tilting my head up, looking up as little as possible. I'm sorry that I look so tired and that I'm looking ever more tired, but my roommate took me to a store today that it turned out I got the hours wrong, and we went in like 5 minutes before we were supposed to. And yeah, the guy there was like, we're closing right now. And the cashier looked at him and she was like, we have 5 minutes. She has 5 minutes. And so I ran to go get, like, there were 2 things that I really needed. Well, there was one thing that I really needed that I could get there really cheap. And then there was another thing that I knew that I had to pass by it to go, and then I could just look really quick and see if they had it, because it's like an overstock style store. And then my roommate came in behind me and he was like, we're closing. And she's like, I'm with her and she is just getting one thing. And the cashier was like, because she has 5 minutes. And they didn't have it. But right next to it was a thing that I needed anyway, because the thing that I have is kind of broken enough that I knew that I needed something else to replace it. And so I was like, yay, $3.99 for the thing that I need. And then I ran up to the front and there was a person in front of me. So like, it's not like they didn't have to, and there was a person behind me as well. So it's not like they didn't have to check out multiple people, but, so I was just looking at the candy for my kid, because my kid's like, oh, if you're going over there, see if they have any candy and not expired. Because my kid says that's where candy goes to die, because it's an overstock place. And, yeah, so we went to, like, it took 2 seconds to check out, and we left before they locked the doors even, so I am not usually the kind of person who runs into a store 5 minutes. Well, yes, I am now, and because I don't want to be around a large crowd of people, and I wear a mask everywhere I go, because I have stupid lungs, and I don't want to be a jerk And I do want them to have time to close up. But like, if I'm going in for one thing and I'm in the line and I can get out before the time's up, I feel like that's fine. Like, at the library, I was always really, like, we would give the 15 minutes and we would give the 10 minutes and we would give the 5 minutes or whatever. If people were in line to check out books, like, we didn't have self-checkout at my last library, and if they were still in line to check out books, I know everybody else was like, let's get out of here. But I'm like, yeah, no, that's fine. Or like, they were still on the computers until the moment the computer shut down. I don't have an issue with that. The problem is the people who have to like deal with their own things, like people with laptops and things like that. They want to push it to the last second, that's fine. And like people who are like trying to choose movies were people we had problems with versus people who wanted to choose books. But like, when I was at the library that had like the really good, like all the new movies were in like one section because we would buy extras of them, and then they'd be taken out for like a shorter period of time so that people could get to them really fast, so that people didn't always have to, like, you would get yourself on the hold list, but then you'd have like a chance to get it faster. But it was really, really cool way to make sure that people get access to stuff. It's just that you would only have like 2 to 3 days with it. And people would just duck in at the last second on like their way home from work or whatever. And they would like look at the grab and go shelf and they'd be like, nothing there. And they just turn around and they walk out because that's all they wanted was like a shiny new movie that they hadn't seen yet. I think that that's really neat. It's not going to bother me if somebody does that at like 2 of, because the self-checkout was right next to it. They would just, and they have their little key fob and that's it. Scan, movie, hit return to log out, grab your receipt, and it's called a grab and go for a reason. It never bothered me when people were sort of up to the very end of the time. It bothered me when people came in at like 2 minutes of and were planning to grab a large amount of things that they didn't know what they were doing. If you're picking up a hold at 2 minutes of, I like you. You're making the last couple minutes of my shift go by faster. If you show up at 2 minutes of and you're like, I'm gonna go browse now, I get that. But that last person who comes in and grabs that last thing, that's never bothered me. It obviously bothered that man, but that cashier felt the same exact way that I did. But no, I totally get it. I totally get it. Like, he didn't even want me to walk in there because he didn't know what kind of shopper that I was. I'm the shopper who remembers the hours from before the pandemic, I guess. It sucks. I would have loved to have just gone there and bought a bunch of things for the house. Not that I really have, the money for a bunch of things for the house, but there are a couple things that we really could have needed. Like, it's a good place to pick up garbage bags and just like stuff like that. But this is not me talking about books, is it? Yeah, so I've been reading mostly graphic novels. I haven't really been in a book mood lately. I was watching Killing Eve instead. And I can't watch the final season because it's behind, paywall. You know what I mean? Like, it's too soon. It's still with all the premium channels. It's interesting to make a show with a different showrunner every season, except for that last season, which was, I guess, the same showrunner as the 3rd season. Not quite sure. Yeah. But I've been enjoying it. I would really I'd love to wrap it up. yeah, I just wasn't in the mood. Sometimes I've been like that lately, but also I had time. Like my NetGalley had a break. I don't think I have anything due for like another 2 weeks. So I've been slowly reading through one of the books, and otherwise just being kind of sad and in my bedroom and not feeling well, and my head hurts. Everything is all pressure and terrible, and we had this huge thunderstorm that just rolled over me like a tank. And my eyes would not stop watering yesterday. I feel better having gone outside than I did in this house yesterday. I don't know what happened. Anyway. But yeah, no, I read the last 2 Vault comics that they're giving away for Pride, and they were really good. I know it's so funny because I'm like, who's Danny Lore? Who is this? And then I realized I saw their name on like Twitter, and I'm like, oh, I know this Twitter. I know this handle. Yeah. Just knocking out whatever stuff catches my attention, and it isn't long. Just tired. I'm so tired all the time now. I don't know if that's like a middle-aged cis woman thing, or like a hormonal thing, or if it's just my medicine, or the fact that I'm like, every time I try to exercise, I get a headache, and it's making me not want to exercise. So yeah, I did watch The Umbrella Academy, the 3rd season. I enjoyed it. I don't know why other people didn't, and they seem very confused, and I'm like, wasn't a lot of this explained in the show, or was it just in the comic? Because I don't even enjoy the comic. Like I read it when it not first came out, but like a little bit after it came out, and I'm like, I don't understand why people like this. Like I don't think it's that well written. And I thought that when the show came out, I thought it did a very good job of taking some very interesting ideas that were a little too on the, capital W, weird side for me, and putting them together as a cohesive whole, and finding a really good story in it, and taking out a lot of the surrealist things that I wasn't that aren't my jam. They're just not my jam. And like, I don't even think that I finished the 3rd trade because I just didn't care enough. Like this is not my genre. It's not my genre. I didn't get everybody who was like, this is wonderful. And I'm like, I sometimes I feel like people think that if they don't understand it, it's the best thing in the world. And I never can tell if those people are understanding something on a different level than I am, or if they are just Emperor's New Closing everything. I really, really feel that way about comics a lot. I am a very literal person. I want my stories to have a definitive beginning, a definitive ending. You can tell from the fact that I really don't like to follow 60 years of comics. I like stories that begin and end. That's why I read a lot of trades and a lot of graphic novels, and a lot of stories that just kind of start and end and have like even like I don't even care if it's a 20-volume run. I'll read all 20 volumes. Just give me something. And hilariously, I hate reboots, but I hate reboots because I don't hate reboots. I hate DC and Marvel's need to feel like what they have to do is constantly bring in new people in a way that upsets the status quo for the readers that are enjoying themselves at the time. I think that's bullshit. which is to say there was no reason to 1 year. First off, there was no reason to 1 year later, let alone New 52. New 52 was some bullshit. And to this day, I will still go back to read some New 52 thinking, well, it couldn't have been that bad, right? And then I read the fucking comics and they're still so awful. And they are such a hodgepodge. Like, and then I was trying to read Rebirth, which again has your New 52 hodgepodge bullshit. Like, DC is so afraid of losing people and not gaining people that they have not, that I barely duck in and duck out of there. Sorry. I love DC, and I mean, I love the DC characters. I love a lot of their writers, and I will follow them through a lot. But what I will not do is be a consistent reader of DC, because they keep doing shit like that. They have a fucking multiverse of worlds, and they won't monetize that. And it doesn't make any sense to me. I would still, like, be reading the same things that I was enjoying the hell out of in 2006 or whatever it was. I would still be reading all of that. And if they had put out the New 52 line as, you know, universe whatever, and just doubled it, they could have brought in a whole new audience, and they're, like, afraid that somehow people won't buy more. And maybe it's true that everybody won't buy double, but it could mean that your newfangled Gen whatever millennial audience at that point would have just gone in for the grim dark bullshit stuff that they were putting out at the time. Like, don't get me wrong, there are some really good runs in there, and I have to say, okay, I can only think of one off the top of my head that I really enjoyed, which was, and this was completely after the fact, because the ones that I had started with were so, just, I was not enjoying them at all, and any of the ones that I tried out at the time. But years later, I gave a couple of them a shot, and some of them were okay, and some of them were horrible still. But one of them that I actually made my way through was Secret Six. And I enjoyed that. I actually enjoyed that. I thought that Gail Simone, well, I think that's part of it, was that Gail Simone was involved with both stories, both sets of characters, and kept a lot of their, for the characters that she kept consistent through them, their personalities were, at their core, relatively the same. At least enough that you didn't feel like you had been, I don't know, just like you were like, okay, this is a different version, not like this is some other completely different person with that name slapped on it. And yeah, it felt like an alternate universe version. It didn't feel like bullshit, grim and gritty, you know, just to see what grim and gritty would be like, or somebody completely different and then there's just their name on it. It's fine. Who cares? Like, just do a what if. Who cares? Like, why? Why are you just taking stuff that was going so well? Because it was too complex for people to jump into. Fan-fucking-tastic. Do it again another way. Like, Marvel showed you how. It was called the Ultimate Universe. People bought the shit out of it. Well, they bought the shit out of Spider-Man because it felt like it was consistent. X-Men had its ups and downs and tried too hard to be grimdark and didn't do what Spider-Man did, which was just basically be like, here's an updated version of Spider-Man. And everybody was like, we can go for that. They didn't try to make it grimdark Spider-Man. They just made a new Spider-Man who was updated. He knew what a cell phone was or whatever. At the same time, the other Spider-Man still existed. Different universe. Everybody was still buying both. Everybody was still buying both. So yeah, it's freaking nonsense. It's so nonsense. I don't even remember what my point was. My head hurts, and I think I've only had potato chips since breakfast. That's the other thing. I've been eating terribly lately, and I'm trying to make it better, which is one of the reasons why when we got to the store and found out it was closed, I was like, you have to take me to the grocery store. I have to be there. I have to look at things, and I have to buy actual, like, proteins and stuff. I can't just keep pretending. Like, when I look at the grocery sheet, just writing down, like, a couple of sides and snacks and pretending like I'm gonna eat food, because I won't, unless it's particular kinds of food right in front of me, because I'll feel like this and I won't want to cook, and I'll just eat the same nonsense over and over again. The potato chips are different, though. I haven't had potato chips in a really long time. I'm trying to think. Violife, I think it is, makes a new French onion dip. It is delicious. It's great. It's a little thick, but that's fine. Also, the things that are in it, don't read what's in it unless you have serious allergies. It's a little confusing. Like, why are these ingredients in here? But it works. Yeah, taste it first, then be confused by what is in there, unless you have allergies. Allergies to lots of weird things. Not weird, just like uncommon. Because I would not have expected to see the things in it that were in it. So I got, like, actual delicious things and healthy things, and things that I'm not sure I'm going to be able to eat, because one of my medicines makes vinegar taste funny. But I got the grocery store that we went to has this great kosher section, and they have a marinated eggplant salad thing that my friend introduced me to, that she just, like, goes over there and buys, like, a bunch of sides for her family dinners. And I think it's the only way I eat eggplant. So it's not true. If you slice it very thinly and turn it into an eggplant parm sub, but I can't have tomatoes anymore. That is the other thing that tastes funny to me. Still trying to figure out how to get around that, because I really love spaghetti, but I don't want to give up this medication. It didn't do what it was supposed to, but it's fixing something else that I desperately needed it to fix. So, or that I needed anything to fix. I've been talking for a half hour. Damn it. And I really didn't mention a lot of books, except for the ones that I don't like, and how mad I am at DC. God, I look so tired. I'm sure I've read other things that I like. Things that just came out. The new Junji Ito. I read that. It's called The Liminal Zone. I hate the word liminal. It's in everything now. It was like one sci-fi person saw it. There's like two words that are everywhere. And it's liminal and limbed. And they're everywhere. Not L-A-M-B, L-A-M-N. It's everywhere. Everywhere. And I'm sorry that I've said it to you and now you're going to see it everywhere, but it's there. It was really cool because now in this project, he didn't have the strict page limits and all the other things that he has when he usually writes for, like, these, you know, like, they put out like magazines and stuff there, like collections. And so it was a way for him to sort of explore what his work looks like if he doesn't have those limitations. And he said he felt, if you've ever seen an interview with him, he seems like such a wonderful man, but he's you know, he said, like, oh, is this too long? I don't know, maybe it was too long, which I think that's really interesting. You know, you spend your whole life in like a, you know, not box, but yeah, like a box. Like, you write a thing, you cut it down until it's a certain length or whatever, and then someone says you don't need to do that anymore, and it's like, well, maybe it was better that way. I don't know what my life is like outside this box, but it's good to know that even someone as talented as he is second guesses second guesses himself, when he writes. And it's interesting. And the stories are very cool. I thought they were very cool. Yeah. I read the new Clementine book, which is Tilly Walden. I'm not the biggest Tilly Walden fan. I've read 3 Tilly Walden books now. I felt like Clementine was shaded very lightly compared to what I remember from the game, which we only played for a very short period of time because it was right when it came out, and it was just glitch-tastic for us. I don't know why. And because of my, even though my dizziness hadn't hit the bad parts yet, the glitches were too much for me, and they made me feel a little seasick. But I don't remember her being, because she can look very pale in that book sometimes. It's not colored, or at least the arc that I saw wasn't colored, and it's just shaded, and she looked very pale sometimes, just unshaded. And I don't think of her that way. But also there's a sort of a I don't want to say dreamy realism. It's sort of and it's not dreary. It's somewhere between dreamy and dreary. Like almost like a realism that's like kind of like everyday, but like everyday in sort of that like everyday thing about Tilly Walden. And I don't love that. I just don't. I never have. And I can't remember if I finished spinning for Rainbow because everybody else did. I probably did. I liked the space book better on a Sunbeam. And then but it didn't blow me away, and I wasn't understanding. Everybody was like, "Oh, it's amazing." And I'm like, "It's fine. It's nice. I like it." And I felt, sort of the same way about Clementine. It was just like, it's fine, but it's not what I want. Like, I guess there are things about The Walking Dead, but especially Clementine specifically. Now, I don't know about any of the other things post the first game, which I can't remember how far we got into it, but there was a very visceral feeling to that game. Like there's something about that game that makes you feel so much, and it's not because it's dude with a kid. It felt very much like I felt reading the books, in that it feels so human, and it makes you feel a lot about the preciousness and the connection between human beings, and the preciousness of life, and the difficulty of making decisions that have nothing to do with what decision do I make about, in the heat of the moment to shoot a zombie. It's what decisions do I make in the heat of the moment, outside the heat of the moment, in terms of how do I live my life. And to especially see them through the eyes of a child. And she's not a child anymore, and I think that really matters. And she's struggling with that, and I think that is one of the things that Tilly Walden actually captures very well in this, is that she is sort of struggling. In some ways she's struggling, and in some ways she's very much matured through that. And I think that the fact that some of that stuff is fine and some of it isn't fine in her head, like she's come to grips with some of it and not with others, is probably the best part of it. The humanity of maturity, and how it's not an A or B situation, either you have it or you don't. That I liked a lot, actually. Yeah. But otherwise, I read, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I read a lot. I read right before I fall asleep. That's the thing with the graphic novels, is I read them right before I fall asleep. And sometimes I don't know when they come out because I get them from the library, and the dates on Goodreads say that they come out after they drop at the library, which confuses me because it's Hoopla and I don't understand how that works. Like, do they drop digitally in a collection on Hoopla before they drop physically? Even though the dates on Goodreads say that the drop for the digital and the physical are the same day? Very confusing. All right, I do need to eat. Yeah. But yeah, if you like horror, the new Junji Ito is good. And if you've had Botox in your face, tell me all about it. I appreciate it.